of the first Roman villas I went and looked at when I was about 10, 11 years old was Gayton, Thorpe. I just couldn't believe you could, at that age, you could walk across a field and physically pick up pieces of Roman pottery that, 2,000 years old. I was just like, this can't be real, at that age. I approached John, who's with the Institute of Archaeology in London, and he kindly agreed that he'd come down and direct the excavation.
Found your mosaic there.
It's got to be there.
You did say it was in Norfolk, did you? There it is.
Oh. Wow. That's looking pretty good neck, isn't it? So far.
Did you ever think you'd see it when you started on here as a kid?
No, I didn't.
Because you never saw it, did you? In
No.
backfield?
No, I never saw it. So.
When you used to walk over these fields, there was just this grassy lump here.
Yeah, never thought I'd see it.
Judging from the scheme, because it's this a 9-panelled arrangement with a large central square, lateral rectangles with quarter, so to speak, squares in the corners, in the 4 corners. That is a pattern or scheme that is commonly associated with the 2nd century.
Okay.
However, you do occasionally get it in the 4th century. This particular type of guilloche pattern, multi-strand guilloche, that is also more likely to be 4th century. So it may be that we've got a pavement here, very late 2nd century, early 3rd century. This is clearly a building of very high status. Very grand layout, isn't it?
It is indeed, yeah. They've thought it through.
Yeah. So, and the quality of the mosaic is good.
I've just nipped up here from the excavation at Gayton Thorpe to Bird Castle, just outside Great Yarmouth, and I'm going to meet here with David Gurney from the Norfolk Museums and Archaeology Service, who's going to tell us a little bit more about what was happening in Norfolk in the Roman period.
The word villa, of course, means farm.
Yes.
And basically what you have is quite an elaborate farmhouse. So this is a wealthy landowner who's living there with his family, his wife and his children, possibly an extended family, there might be grandparents, and probably also farm workers living in the area. Sometimes they started off as very simple buildings, just a row of rooms, and then as time went on and the farmer made more money, they'd elaborate the buildings. So they might put a corridor along the front so that you could get into the rooms independently without having to go through the other rooms, and then they might add side wings to the building. They might build a bathhouse. They might then build larger structures adjacent to that and almost sort of form a courtyard.
Now that we've got the outline of a hole people have been working on the last couple of days, I'm really just cleaning up the edges to delimit now the trench. Get it all nice and neat around the top edges and the walkways. By the end of the day it'll be trimmed back so that we actually have an archaeological trench. Always an old saying in archaeology, keep a straight face and a clean bottom, then everything's all right. We've been finding a heck of a lot of brick and tile, which is probably to be expected on a large villa which would have had its roofs tiled and its walls partly made of brick. Also been finding lots of the tessera. But in addition to these bits of the building, we've also been finding bits of the objects that were used in and around the villa, especially pottery. Probably originally high quality pottery, known as Samian ware, that was imported from Roman Gaul, modern day France. And this is from the lower part of a large bowl, probably have been used as a centerpiece for the dining table to carry fruit or food from which people would take their servings. I was particularly interested in these sort of vessels are highly decorated.
So this was one of the pots then, John, that came from the original excavation?
That's right, we've got a lot of pottery from the excavation, but this is the most complete single vessel that we've got.
And this was locally made, I think?
Certainly is local, yes.
Yeah.
I think Nar Valley is likely,
Yeah,
but it's
yeah.
locally produced for a local market. One of the features of Roman villas is that they don't tend to turn up much in the way of coinage. The villas in West Norfolk are particularly light in their coinage, and whether that is because they're tied in with an estate system, whereby they didn't have need for coinage on a day-to-day basis is quite possible. But the excavation at Gayton Thorpe, although they didn't use metal detectors, it's still a very small assemblage, and they only turned up 3 coins at that time.
Yeah.
And they were all very tightly clustered.
And they were quite late as well, I believe.
They were.
Or later, should I say.
270s.
Yeah.
There were 2 of Tetricus the First.
Yes.
And 1 of Tetricus the Second. And these were known as the Gallic emperors. It was a period when Britain and Gaul and part of Spain broke away from the Central Roman Empire, and there was a lot of coinage that went to ground at around about that time. They pumped these out in pretty large numbers. And it was the period when everybody started to use coins. It was probably the first period in the whole of Roman Britain that the people in the countryside and in towns, and everybody would have actually started to use coins at this time.
Yeah.
It was quite a late development that people outside of the towns actually got used to coinage.
Gilbert and Agnès are working are a number of small bones, all of which are together, all of which seem to be articulated, and it appears at this stage that it may be an infant burial, a neonatal, as we call it. It's either a stillbirth or a child that probably died when it was just a few days old. We're obviously having to go very, very carefully and delicately to make sure that we don't damage the bones, because they are very fragile, and also so that we can get a complete record of the little burial. And obviously then the jaw is underneath, you think?
Yeah, if we have anything from the jaw, they're pretty thin, aren't they, usually, at that age?
Oh no, look, there's the eye socket there.
Can you see it? Where?
Yeah, that's what I thought.
All right. Could it be that?
Yeah, you see the...
Certainly, infant mortality was much higher in those days than it is today, and inspection of the pathology of this individual will give us a lot of information about just what was going on there. Could it be related to disease, to diet?
We know remarkably little about the Roman burials in Norfolk. Only about 200 dead Romans have ever been found.
Have you ever doused this field?
No, I ain't been out here. That's why I come down here for. But there's a scientific explanation for theirs, all right. That's got something to do with your blood. You've got to have the right blood in your body.
Have you?
Yeah.
And what blood's
I don't know.
Which blood group
I shall have to go to the doctor and have my blood tested.
Yeah.
And see whether that's any different than anybody else's. Hazel is the strongest.
Yeah.
Other things will do it, they aren't tough enough. I can't do nothing about it. I can't stop it. I can't control it. When that pull down, that'll pull down. I can't do nothing. In fact, if you do too much, that'll make your bloody arms ache.
Yeah.
I can't make, for the life of me, make out why archaeology don't make more use of those.
These Roman settlements did go into decline, and gradually the buildings, like the villas, would have slowly decayed and crumbled. The original excavation at Gayton Thorpe was quite a long time ago, and so to have the opportunity to go back and look at the same site again under modern conditions with all of the new modern techniques that you've been able to bring to it has been really exciting. And obviously that's giving us a lot of very useful information about what's going on villa sites, how they were built, the chronology, the pottery, the finds that are there. It's helping us to build up a picture of what life was like in a prosperous Roman farmhouse in that time.
Now, I've really enjoyed working on this site and running this excavation. We've had some bad weather, but one positive thing is that the ground's dried very quickly each time. But also I've been working with a really good group of people, excellent group of people, and to be quite frank, they really should be proud of what they've achieved. This this is not just part of the nation's heritage, but it's also the heritage and history of a much smaller community. And these open days the purpose of them is simply to bring in the locals, to reconnect them with their villa. We've been talking about it as being our site, but it is their villa and it's their archaeology.
When I came here, I thought, well, there'll be one man, a dog, and 3 others, and me. And look at it, absolutely. And it shows you the level of interest that there is latent in, in the local community.
As children, you see, when it was holiday times, all the children used to come up and play in the Roman villa. We were out of the way of everybody, and there's a lovely stream along there. We used to paddle in that, then leave our things in the Roman villa. You see them go and jump in at this stream then. So that was our bathing hut.
This building behind us is where our grandfather George Billing used to live many years ago when he was a ploughman in the local area. He used to plough these fields we have in front of us, and this is where he subsequently found the mosaic floor. The ploughshare used to slip on the mosaic tiles on a regular seasonal basis, and I guess he got fed up with slipping on it.
Romans didn't cook on wood because wood gives too much smoke, so they cooked on charcoal because you can use that indoors and it doesn't give off as much smoke, but you still get the heat.
And I found this piece of Roman floor and this Roman tile. I did.
It was a fantastic day. I mean, we had somewhere in the region of 2,500 people. We were just inundated. We literally couldn't believe how many people turned up.
Job's done. It's nice to finish that. We've got a full record. That last bit that we were doing there was to get levels on all of this pretty undulating monument here, with all the subsidences and the cracked walls and the holes and the Atkinson's trench. Well, we've got it all now. And now what we're going to do is carefully cover over the mosaic bits with some sand, some washed sand, and some terran fabric. The terran will stop weeds growing down, roots of plants growing down, and the washed sand, the silver sand, will prevent any staining of the mosaic. And then once that's done, then hopefully the JCB can just push the soil back over it.
The end, cut.
No more.
Yeah, all finished.